Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel Shilpa Data Insights. Good afternoon everyone. So we'll start with the day 6 workshop. So today will be our last day of the Databricks workshop that we will have. So today there are some advanced topics that we will be covering. So first let's just go ahead and recap what we have done till now. So there are some pointers that I would like to focus on before we move forward to our day 6 topics. So the ones that we have already covered, it's related to the Databricks workspace UI. Then we covered how to create the clusters, what are the types of the clusters. Then we also covered about the libraries, how we can install the libraries and all. And after that, we also saw how to use the repos, how to do a basically a pull, push, and clone it. Then we looked into the dbfs commands, the magic commands that we have, and the dbutils command. Then we also saw how to actually create our delta tables and how to do a time travel on the top of the delta table and how to actually see the table history. We also saw some performance technique of the optimization, and we also saw basically how to use the vacuum command. Then we also checked what is exactly a Unity catalog and what is the purpose of the Unity catalog. And on the basis of that, we also saw what is the role-based access control and how we create a secret scope and how we can go ahead and utilize the secret scope. Then we also created the DLT pipeline with the help of the Delta Life tables. And we created a workflow and we saw how to actually schedule the particular job. So, all these topics we have already covered. And in the chat window, I have shared the documentation link as well as the playlist link that I have created in the YouTube. If you want, you can just go ahead and watch it because I have made them in detail regarding each of the topic, most of them. So let's move on to today's agenda that we have. That is the autoloader and the copy into. So both autoloader and copy into actually ingest the data into the delta table. And these two features will help you in incrementally loading the data into the delta table. So let's first see what exactly is autoloader and how we can incrementally load the data into the delta table using autoloader. Before jumping into autoloader, we also need to understand what is an incremental data. So incremental data is any data that is arriving on a very frequent basis. That frequency could be either hourly, could be a daily, or it could be weekly. So if you have an incremental data, there's a lot of challenges involved in handling that particular incremental data. You need to make sure that whatever data is coming to your delta table, none of the data is missed, or if there's any failure, those data should be coming up again. So how exactly will you handle the incremental data? So there are basically three ways in which you can handle the incremental data in your legacy system or the streaming system. Is First is it's the normal batch processing. You are processing all the data that is arriving at one go. So it is like a one time load every time the data arrives. The second way is you can go ahead and create a complete pipeline and store whatever is your last process files. If you are storing whatever is your last process file, whatever new data file is coming, those new data file is only picked up and then saved it into your table. Then you also have a structured streaming in which you go ahead and do a streaming processing on the Spark itself. But all of them have few challenges of it. Let's say if you are processing the data at one time like a batch, then you can use this process only when the data is not too frequent. Either the data could be daily or it could be a weekly. If it is daily at a particular scheduled time, if you know when exactly the data is arriving, then it is very helpful to go ahead and do a processing of the complete data at that particular time. But if in case you don't know exactly when exactly it's going to be landing in your landing zone, then you have to create a pipeline and store the metadata when exactly the last file will be processed. In the metadata, once you have the last file processed, then the new file you can go ahead and pick up, and then that file particularly gets processed. So in this particular complete process, you will need a lookup table, you will need to manage your metadata, and therefore there is a lot of overhead that you need to do in maintaining this complete pipeline. And more storage will also be required to go ahead and save your metadata of your files. In the structure streaming, again, it's the Spark streaming where you go ahead and read the whole file, and it loads the data into your Delta table. So, in order to avoid the challenges that we actually face in incremental data, we have the autoloader in the Databricks. So, what Databricks has come up is with the autoloader, where exactly it efficiently process whatever new data files is coming up in your cloud storage space or your DBFS location. So let's say a new data file is coming. How exactly the autoloader will know that the new data file has come? It is saving the metadata of all the files that are coming in your cloud storage in a particular database called RocksDB, in which your complete metadata is saved in a key value pair. So as the metadata is already stored, it knows what was my last file that has come, and it will ensure only the new files will get processed. So this particular RocksDB actually helps you in processing the data exactly once, so that all the data is processed and none of the data is also skipped. So in autoloader, there are two ways how the files are detected, whether that file is processed or not. The first way is the directory listing mode, in which it goes ahead and lists all the new files that is present in the input directory that has come and that is not processed. So it scans the complete directory and identifies the new file. In this case, you will not need any kind of permission. Only thing that you will need is the permission of your cloud storage or the storage location where you have your data residing. You need to have the read access for those data in that particular storage location. In the second way of detecting the file is your file notification mode. In the file notification mode, what autoloader will do is it will set up your notification services. Like it will set up your AWS SNS and Event Grid or PubSub in Google in order to notify that a file has arrived in your cloud storage. And along with the queue services like SQS in your Amazon and Azure Queue Storage in your Azure, it will go ahead and subscribe to that file event from the input directory and go ahead and process those files only. In this file notification mode, only thing is that you need to have some permissions in your cloud storage. Let's say you need to have your read permissions of your cloud storage space, and this particular file notification mode is more performant when you have a very high volume of file, because in this case it's not exactly going ahead and reading the complete input directory. It's just picking up the file as soon as the file arrives in your particular location. So in this diagram on the right side, it has shown the two ways itself. The first is the notification method, the first, and then it goes to the messages queue and it stores the metadata in the RocksDB with the help of the structure streaming of the cloud files that Databricks provide. It saves the data into the Delta Lake. Similarly, in the directory listing, also it's actually listing all the directory files and then saving the metadata into the RocksDB. After that, it's doing the structure streaming and saving it into the Delta Lake. So let's see what is the syntax of the autoloader. We have seen this particular syntax of cloud file yesterday as well, in which we talked about the DLT pipeline. So what it does is, as soon as you mention the cloud files, in that cloud files, that is your autoloader format. So whenever you are declaring any autoloader file processing, then you need to mention that it's a cloud file. And once it has the cloud file format, you have to mention what format of the cloud file is present, whether it's a JSON, whether it's a Parquet, whether it's a CSV file, or other format of the files. You also have an option here where you mention your schema location, where exactly the schema is getting saved, what exactly is the schema of the file that needs to be processed. This is needed for your metadata of your file. Then you are loading the file into the path, where exactly is the path. Once the file has been read, now we are actually writing the data into the stream using different options again, like merge schema, because it supports the schema evolution again. So you can merge the schema, you can provide the checkpoint location where you want to save your checkpoint, and where exactly you want to write the data in of your write stream. So there are some property that cloud files are providing, like allow override. It can override the data. You can also mention the format with the schema location. And if in case you know the schemas, you are not declaring the complete schema, but you know one or two column schema, you can also mention the schema hints for it, so that it can only pick those particular schemas for those columns. So now let's talk about copy into. Copy into is again,
Shilpa, I have a
yes.
question.
Mhm.
Can you please go to the previous slide? So, this schema location means our file will be having some schema, let's say name, salary, employee. So, what kind of columns or what kind of data type it has, that information is stored in schema location, correct?
Correct.
And the checkpoint location means where exactly the file is dropped.
Yes, every time you create a commit, right? Whatever the checkpoint, like you are creating a table, that is a commit that you are doing. So all these details are present in the checkpoint location.
Means it's the location where the file will be dropped, like the landing zone of
Correct.
the file.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so let's say if there are two jobs which have JSON files as streaming files, so based on schema only, it will identify which file to pick up for which pipeline. Or we can give some other kind of identifiers such as for this job, name will be containing this some characters like that.
So you are mentioning the load path, right? Where exactly those files, from which location you want to read the file. So there's an input path that you need to provide from where it's actually reading it. If there are two jobs and they are using two paths, you will have two unique paths, right, for both of them.
Let's say folder is same. Is it possible we can have a same folder and two files are coming? One is for different job and another is for different job like that. Is it possible?
So it will not recognize for which job it needs to. As soon as that particular file lands into that location, right, it will be picked by
Hmm.
both the jobs. There's no differentiation that this file needs to be picked by this job and this file needs to be picked by this job, right? Then in that case there will be no differentiation as such.
Okay, so it's like by being a developer, it is our responsibility that if both are JSON files, then we should keep it in a different folder to avoid these kind of conflict.
Correct. Yes, because otherwise it will not know. The autoloader will not know which file needs to be picked, because its responsibilities, as soon as the file is there, it will start processing it.
Okay, so and what is this for dot start path to target?
That means where exactly you want to write the data back to the file.
Okay, got it. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so let's move on to the copy into option. In the copy into, again, it's the same way as we are doing it in the autoloader. It's used to incrementally process the data and load the data into the delta table. So in this, only difference is if there is a millions of files, then it's beneficial to use autoloader. But if it's thousands of files, then you can use copy into, because copy into cannot be used for a lot of scalable purpose. In case of autoloader, it can be scaled a lot because you have your file detection method in which you can actually create your event grid, and using your SNS and all, you can actually notify the services, right? So that's the benefit of the autoloader. But if in case it's in thousands of files, then go ahead and use the copy into method. So basically it loads the data from the file location itself into the delta table. The benefit of this copy into is, again, if you are retrying the process again and again, it will make sure that it will not go ahead and upload the old file. It will just upload the file that has been newly added to that particular location. So it actually guarantees that it's processed exactly once, which is also done by Spark Streaming using the watermark and all. So the same process is also done in the copy into option, that it is an idempotent operation and it can be retriable. If you want to do a force reload of the data, that option is also available in the copy into option. So I will show you that in the practical exactly what syntax you need to use to force reload the data. So in this, once the files arrives from the cloud storage, the metadata gets saved into the RogsDB, and in the RogsDB itself, it goes ahead and deduplicate the files. Whatever is being processed, it's removing those, and the new files are actually getting copied into your Delta Lake table. So in the copy into, you can use various formats of the file like your CSV, JSON, XML, Parquet, text file, and binary files. And again, it's an exactly once file processing by default. You can change this exactly once file processing with the help of the force reload option. And the target table that you have, it will infer the schema. If in case the schema is not matching and you have your merging and evolution property turned on, then it will go ahead and merge your schemas and go ahead and add your new columns if needed. If there's any schema mismatch, then it's going ahead and you will have multiple options, whether you can drop the rows, or you can fail the pipeline, or you can put it inside a particular column called rescue data. So in data ingestion, when you are copying the files from directory, you mention the copy into keyword and from what source table is present, and what is your file format. The file format again could be CSV, JSON, Parquet, any file format. And then we have this validate option. So I'll mention what validate option is the next slide itself. Then we have the format option. Let's say you are loading a file which is a CSV file, and you want the header to be true, and you want the job to actually infer the schema. You can mention that as we do it normally in the Spark streaming. And you can do a copy option. Here copy option means the merge schema is true, so it will detect if in case there's any schema evolution that has happened, that it will go ahead and add your new columns into your schema itself. So in the copy into, as I was saying, there is a option called validate mode. In the validate mode, you are actually not doing any data ingestion into the table. Let's say you want to verify that whatever data you are ingesting into the table is correct or not, then you can use this validate mode. It will just display you the data, what is going to be inserted into the table, without actually writing the data into the table. So it's basically a dry run that you will be doing on the top of your data to visualize it before inserting into the target table. Why exactly it's being done? It's because how exactly it's being done is because when you have your copy into, then it checks the idempotency check, basically whether those files are already being loaded into the table or not. If not, then only it will go ahead and show you those particular list of data that needs to be loaded. It also checks whether you have a permission to read the files that are present into your cloud storage. If not, then it's going to go ahead and throw you an error. So it validates these permission check as well. It will validate whether the schema is matching or not. And if in case there's a schema evaluation, it will mention that the schema evaluation has taken place, and you will get the list of columns where there's a difference in the schema. It will also go ahead and do a delta constraint checks, and it will go ahead and preview the complete result once the validation has been done before ingesting the data into the target table. So in this copy into after your file format that you have mentioned, either you can use the keyword call validate. So it will validate the first few rows of the complete data set. If you want to validate all the rows that are present in the file, then you can go ahead and mention the validate all. If you just want the first 50 rows, or let's say X rows, you can mention those number of rows after the validate keyword. So these are the documentation link I've already pasted in the chat window. So you can go through these documentation links for your autoloader and the copy into option. Okay. So in this, I've created my database basically, and I have created two parts. One is my input stream, and second is my output stream. So I have actually loaded some sample data set to my input stream, which I will be saving. Whatever output will be saved, it will be saved into my output stream. So I've done some cleanup, and right now, if you will see in this left side, you have this cloud files in which we are using the autoloader. As we are using cloud files, as soon as we see that, it means that we are actually using the autoloader option. Let me just run this command in order to run the next command cells. Okay, this is already not there, fine. So in this cloud files format, the file that I have in this particular input stream is actually a CSV file. So I am mentioning the format of the file is my CSV, and my schema location I have mentioned whatever is my output stream. Inside that output stream, I've created a folder called autoloader, and inside that the schema location folder. Inside the schema location only, I will be saving my all my schemas that will be created. And I am also creating an autoloader checkpoint where exactly my checkpoint files will be saved, and there is an output folder in which my output files will be saved. So if I run this particular command, first of all, you will see the schema location. Checkpoint will come once one checkpoint is created, and the output folder. So if I go to my catalog explorer, I have my file store. Inside my file store, there's tables. Inside the tables, I have this Shilpa folder in which I have my input stream. In this input stream, I'm actually reading this subscription data.csv. And in my output stream, I will be saving my data. So inside this output stream, I created the autoloader folder in which the checkpoint file will be created, output folder will be created, and schema location. So if I go to the schema location, one particular schema file will be created here. That is my zero. I'll show what exactly schema will be saved in this. And in similar way, the checkpoint file will be also there. That is my source file. And the metadata file is there. And inside my output folder, I will be saving my output files. So let me go back to this autoloader. So I have my file here loaded into this. So I'm selecting the data from my autoloader table. So if you will see, there are three entries of this particular autoloader file. And here, if we will see, there's one more column that has been created here, which was not present in my file, that is called rescue data. So if in case there is any schema mismatch or any particular failure of a particular file, it will be saved in the rescue data. So when you are actually moving the data from raw layer till your bronze to silver to gold, then in that case, in the silver layer itself, you can remove this particular column, because this is not an actual fact column that will be needed. And this particular, if you, we will see, I have not mentioned any schema of my file. I have just mentioned what is my format of the file, but I have not mentioned the schema of the file. So I will actually go ahead and predefine my schema. What I will do is I will go ahead and predefine my four columns, but I will be removing my fifth column to see exactly how the autoloader will behave. So for that, let me just clean up my location of my output stream and drop my autoloader table as well. So in this, I have my CSV file and the schema location is there. Now I'm mentioning that this is my schema that I want to read for this particular file that I have. And I have one column as removed, then it should actually fail. The data should fail and it should not actually proceed. So for that, I have mentioned fail on new columns. So if in case any new columns is there, so it is going to fail on that. So that is my schema evolution mode that I am putting. I can put other schema evolution mode as well, like rescue mode. In that case, it's actually going to track what exactly the data is not matching with my particular table. So let me run this. If this particular command should fail because I have my schema defined here. Let me run the schema first. Okay, so now let me run this particular cell. So now, one second, this is having my subscription date. It has not failed. Let's see what schema it's showing up. Okay, I have not displayed this. Let me display this particular command. So now if you will see that there's an unknown field exception, that the new field in the file has been encountered, that is my subscription date. It's not able to pass that. So therefore this particular command actually failed while loading the data into the delta table. Now if in case I want to go ahead and make this particular pipeline run, then I can mention it as a rescue mode in the schema evolution. And this, in this rescue mode, I have this rescue data column. I am just renaming this column to my underscore rescued underscore data. So in this case, it will actually load my file and it will put the rescued data into my rescued data column. So if we will see here, this is my column basically in which it was giving me the error. Let it load. So this actually displays what is your processing rate, what is your batch duration and all, because this is your streaming that we are having. So in this, you will see that the subscription date is there and what particular file in which this particular subscription date is found and it failed. So you can actually debug it with the help of the file name and what column name in which actually this particular data is present, because of which this particular pipeline has given us in this particular rescue data column. I'll just interrupt this because it will keep on going because of the streaming. The next point that we will discuss is related to the schema hints. So I will again read it in a different data frame, df1 df1. In this, I have different schema. All of the schema it has inferred as string. So if you will see the subscription id is there, that is also string. My date is also in a string column, but I am sure my date will not be in a string column. So I will be putting my subscription date to be a date data type. So in that case, I will be putting my subscription hint as my cloud files option, and I will be putting my column name and my date as the data type inside the string. Now, if I will go ahead and print this particular schema, you will be seeing this subscription date is actually a date data type. So now it has actually recognized that my subscription date is my date data type. So this is very beneficial if in case you actually know that this is a date column and you don't want it to be inferred by the Databricks itself. So you can use that particular schema hint option. Now I will show you basically how what is the file that is being saved. Let's say I have saved this particular file in my schema location. What exactly does it contain inside this particular schema? and what exactly it contains inside my checkpoint location that we have. It's not- So there's one JSON file and there's one Parquet file that is there. It's not opening up. Second. Okay, I think I deleted it. Okay, I'll show it from here. So this is this particular is my host name, and this is my file name basically, and this is my workspace name. So as we were discussing how exactly you can export a file from the dbfs location, so you don't have a option directly to go ahead and download this particular. If you will see, it will just allow you to copy the path, it will not allow you to go ahead and download the file. So exactly to see what is present inside this particular schema location, you have to go ahead and download this file. So in this there is no option, right? So what you can do is you can provide your host name first and then your complete path of your file. After the files slash files slash files, after that you have to provide the complete file name and your workspace name. So if you download this particular file, then this will be shown up. I have downloaded it already to show you. This is my version 1 because I have created the first version of the schema. So if in case there's any schema evolution, it's going to create another file with the version 2 and so on. And in this schema, it's a JSON file that's been created, and my first name is my first field, which is my string data type. And then my subscription ID is again integer data type, and the subscription date is my string data type. Like, it will just give you what data type it has for this particular file that it has read. Now comes is my JSON file that I will go ahead and get. So in the JSON file, it will go ahead and give you at what timestamp the commit has been done, what operation it has done, and what is my other location, like what is my metadata of it. It will just go ahead and save these details to your particular JSON file. And this is my metadata. Again, it's in this metadata is just going to show you what is your stream ID and what is your timestamp and your GUID. So basically, the major benefit that you will be getting is from the schema that you have from here. So this is what how we can actually go ahead and use our autoloader. So let's see how we can do it for the copy into option. So in the copy into, I'll first drop some tables that I've created before to show it. Now, in the copy into, the most benefit thing that I could see is you don't have to actually mention the schema of the table while actually saving the data into the table. Even if you don't create any schema of the table, as it has a schema place where exact from where exactly it's infers the schema and stores it. So it is good that you don't create any schema, okay, and then you can, while reading it, it's actually inferring the schema and processing the data. So I'll create this particular table, I'll describe, it will not show me any schema for this table. And this is my file, the same file I'm using for the copy into. I want to copy into my table called copy into demo, and I am not loading the data into the table right now. I just want to see what kind of schema it's showing up and what all data is there that is going to load into my copy into table. So for that, I'm using this validate option. Inside that, I have this copy option. I am mentioning the merge schema is true. As I don't have any schema right now, so it will fail if I don't use my merge schema equal to true. So therefore, I am using this merge schema equal to true, and I'm checking what exactly schema it will be showing and what all data it will be loading into my this particular table. Once it has validated, if I go ahead and okay, so now if I see in this particular data set, I have my column name as first name, last name, product ID, subscription ID, and date. But this is treated as a row. We have to actually remove this from the row and put it inside my column name, right? And only 3 rows should display. So now I can see there is some problem in this data, right? And I need to fix it before actually loading the data. So that is how the validate option is beneficial in this case. So let me first go ahead and select star from this copy into table. And now you see there is no data into it. There's a data analysis exception because there is no columns into this particular data, so it's not finding any data in this particular table. So the data has not inserted from this particular subscription data CSV into the table. Now, let me first fix that particular data from the CSV file before again inserting the data. So I will be putting my format options here, format option in which I will be putting the header equal to true and the infer schema that is equal to true as well. So it is going to infer the schema. It will be inferring the schema, let's say, as string, and my header is also equal to true in this case. So now my data looks good, and now I can go ahead and insert my data into my table. So for inserting the data into the table, I'm just removing the validate option from here, and I'm rerunning this particular data set again. Once I rerun this particular data set, it's going to insert the data. If you will see, it says the number of affected rows as 3 and number of inserted rows as 3, and there's no correct file, so it is 0. Now let me select this to make sure that the data has been inserted into the table. Yes, it's inserted into the table right now. Now I will go ahead and try to load the same data, subscription underscore data dot CSV, into my table. So in this case, it should not load the data into my table again because this particular file is already being loaded into the table. So let me rerun this command, and it is going to show that number of affected rows is 0 and inserted rows is 0. It means it has not loaded the data into the table. It has stored that this particular file is already being loaded into the table. So I don't want to go ahead and process any more data for this particular file. So it is going to show me that there are only 3 records that are inserted in this particular table. Let's say there is some scenario, and you have inserted the data, and then let's say there was something wrong and you removed that particular data from your data set, and you want to ingest this particular subscription data file again to your table. As it has already been done, it will not do it. So there should be a way, if in case there's any problem and you want to reload this data again. In that case, there's a command here which is called force equal to true. By default, this is actually false. If you make it force equal to true, it's going to reload the data into your table. So let me first validate this particular data set one more time, whether this data set is correct. Yes, this is correct with the help of the validate option I'm getting. And now I am actually reloading the data into my table. So instead of 3 rows right now, it will actually show you 6 rows. So number of inserted rows is again 3. Now I will go ahead and do a select star from my copy into table again. And now you see the data has been duplicated, and now it is actually having the 6 rows. So in this way, actually, you can go ahead and load your data into your delta table. Along with the force equal to true, you can also validate the data, whether the data is showing you correct or not. If not correct, before inserting the data, it's better practice to actually correct the data and then load the data into your table from your raw layer. So I think I have completed both the topics here now, autoloader and the copy into. If we have any questions, please feel free to ask. Thank you so much for watching, and I wish you have a good day.